Okay, so now I'm just gonna make a quick video showing you how to blend. But before you blend, like I've asked you in class, it's important to determine that you have the correct value. So before we do the blending process, we're going to create a value scale, just like the one that you created the first time. I'm gonna do that off camera so I save some time. And then I'm just gonna come back in and show you some blending techniques to try to make them blend together. If you don't know how to do this, go to my previous video about value scale 1 through 10. Okay, so I created a value scale. May not be perfect, but for the purposes of showing you how to blend, in between them, it'll work. And this takes a lot of time to do it correctly. But I've already spoken to some of you in class. And what you have to understand is that if this is a value of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, such a thing does exist as a value in between these. So a value of 1.5 or 2.5 or 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, etc. So some of you noticed quickly that your first value or your number 1 was lighter than the reference. And yeah, I mean, it could be lighter. So the idea is that in between your 1 and your 2, you want to get a value of 1.5. That is a rather difficult thing to do. So, but if you could imagine a space here in between these two, and in that space, you're just gonna hatch and cross hatch as well. When you're hatching and cross hatching, it's important, and I said this once before, when you make a line, you can change the value of that line if you increase or decrease the pressure as you write. So you can see that this line is a bit thicker here, and then it gets thinner and thicker. So when you start hatching and cross hatching between these two values, where it's lighter, and I did it too much there, you want to apply a bit more pressure, and as you reach the darker value, you ease up on the pencil. And you can hatch and cross hatch, but where those values combine, that's where you want to make your hatch and your cross hatch. So the way that I describe it, and it's a bit easier for students to understand, is you just want to kind of do a little hatching, cross hatching, and an X pattern in between the two values. And then to the right of that, you're going to have to darken it a bit to make it blend with the rest. And to the left of that, actually you also have to darken a bit, because right here it's a bit too light. Excuse me. And this is a very light value, so it's tough to see on camera. Let's try this one. So what you're trying to do in essence is you're kind of just trying to blend them, right? By getting that middle value of those two in between. What does happen sometimes though is that you start to build up too much value. So you can see right here, too much value is built up. So you want to get rid of some of that graphite. Another way to do this is also, you can get like it's called a tortillon. It's like a rolled up piece of paper that's used specifically for blending. Or you could get a tissue and use a tissue. And like I said before, when you're doing it on a value scale, it takes a long time. Some of you may have already done this step, but I'm not going to I'm not going to be too aggressive when I'm grading this step just because it does take so long and I don't want to spend too much time on it. That's why I told you guys just go for it, you know? And sometimes you have to, with your blending, you have to get, you know, like tiny, imagine little tiny hatch marks. And you can see that started to blend a bit there, even though it is a bit built up as well. But we're trying to make these clear and distinct separations kind of dissipate. I'll take a little bit away here. You want to hatch and cross hatch with your eraser as well, but think about it like, you know, microscopic hatching and cross hatching. And now on to the next one. This one already started a bit thick, so I'm going to just take a little bit away. This is really important when it comes to 3D, and the next assignment we're going to do is we're just going to do the sphere and all of that good stuff. The sphere, the cube, and the cone. To get rid of the excess that's just built up naturally between the two. And sometimes that blends them a bit. So here I have a tissue, and you'll see this helps to blend it as well, but it kind of pushes the graphite around, which is not always what you want. But it definitely does help blend. You have to be careful when you use this because it can easily get, you know, a bit out of control and it makes everything look a bit too similar. So now you can see it's kind of blending a bit more naturally. As I blur my vision, these values are a bit lighter in the center, so, well, that could also be because we're adding a bit on the outside, so it might be a good idea to just go in and shade it a bit more so it doesn't stand out so much. Yeah, that looks much better. When you have something like this, where there's clearly, or here, where there's like clearly kind of a separation, which you don't want to add graphite to the center there. So you kind of want to build it up around to make that line at least appear like it's fading a bit. And I could try to lighten this one a bit because it is a bit too dark right here. Still too dark, so I'm going to take away a little bit. If you can see any clear lines like that, you want to take those away. There you go. Now this would all have to be darkened quite a bit. It feels too light. And now this I would have to darken as well to make it blend. So you can see we slowly started to get rid of some of the lines, you know. Of course they're still there, but not nearly as obvious as when we started. And this one definitely needs a bit more work, just evening it out on this side. So yeah. I would still go in and maybe lift some of this here. Wherever there's any areas that are too dark, you want to lift a bit of graphite. Look at it again. Still a little bit right here. So it is this process of adding and removing and adding and removing when it comes to shading. And when you blur your vision, well, we're not quite done here. I guess I'll finish this up. You could also try like moving your pencil in a circular direction. That helps to kind of dissipate it and avoid any lines. I don't know how well you could see that, but that one, try to blend, and just a little bit darker over here. So yeah, the whole objective of this is to try to get rid of any of these obvious separations, the one that was here, 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 by putting a value in between these two, sneaking it in there. I'm not going to finish it because the glare is becoming problematic, but we'll have an opportunity to practice this quite a bit as we move on to three-dimensional forms.